Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends, the podcast. Don't fail your city.
During a trip through time, the Legends were forced to land the Waverider in Blue Valley, Nebraska, where they discovered a young superhero.
Yes.
About to take flight.
That's cool.
Who are you?
I'm Stargirl.
Welcome back to Blue Valley, Nebraska. Don't worry, the Waverider is properly cloaked behind Pat's garage and not out in the open for everyone to find like Stripe is. We are peeking out from behind the curtains and whispering our thoughts on Chapter 6 tonight. And I'm the horror movie know-it-all. Don't go in there, Flash.
And I'm calling the entire Blue and Green Lantern Corps to help fight Eclipso X-Force 11.
And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, the Flash, the Maid of Mischief Harley Quinn, and the Blue Beacon of Hope, X-Force 11.
Hello, Legends.
Oh, good, Gideon's here. She's not hiding from all of this darkness. Well, welcome everybody to the show. You know, we've been going on for a few weeks, and we totally forgot to mention a small tidbit of news. We owe Dreamweaver, our friend Abby, a public... Well, I guess we could publicly apologize, but we kind of owe it to her that we have to let you all know that clip that you've been hearing of Stephen Amell introducing our show, she worked her dream charms on him recently at the con that she was at to get him to record that for us. So, and he just couldn't say no because it's Dreamweaver, right? So we just wanted to say thanks, Abby, for doing that for us. It's fun that we get to use it. And mix it in with Tom Cavanaugh. And then just to let you guys know, I've got a special new clip coming, which we'll use for the Legends premiere in a few weeks. If you follow me on Facebook, you may have seen the sneak report of it. But if you haven't, well, I guess you'll find out on our Legends premiere.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right, X-Force, let's do this. Let's get into this crazy episode. What did you think?
So I gave this one 8.75 diamond cracking staffs. Now, we are not even halfway through this season yet, and we get a big fight scene and so much more. We knew Cindy's plans, but oh no. I really enjoyed watching the weight of the fight scene and the fact that Shade was scared of Eclipso. So it was just good to me. I enjoyed that, and the fight really balanced out some of the rest of the episode, and we're going to get into the talk of discussion here. But honestly, I didn't expect this much, fight and action this early in the season. But Let's hear what Flash has to say, because there's a real difference behind the mic tonight.
Well, it's funny that you talk about bringing up the fight, because it's like they had to make up for all the fighting that's been lacking this season, because there hasn't been any action, hardly at all. So it's funny that you bring it up. But yeah, I think I may be on a one-way ticket to Diablo Island myself tonight, because after listening to you and reading all the Facebook comments, I think I am all alone in not enjoying this episode. I'm giving it a 6.5 shades of the Season 1 finale. Too much corn and too much cheese to really enjoy what should have been epic. So, for me, this episode had some great parts, but it had way too much groaning moments that just took away from all the cool scenes for me. And some quick examples are, and you mentioned the fighting, we're going to be so opposite tonight, this will be a fun one. The fighting did not come off well at all, just too much cable work that just didn't look realistic at all. It looked so phony, so fake, and I hate that. The arrival of Eclipso was so disappointing. He looked ridiculous to me. He looked more like a bad night elf from some children's movie than anything to be scared of. I thought it was awful. The once again absolute uselessness of Beth standing there for the big fight showdown just made me angry. But I will counter it with the best sequence of the episode, and that was seeing Pat, and I hate to say this, but Pat getting his butt kicked by Artemis in his garage. they did that scene really well. It looked plausible. It made physics accurate sense. So I think this episode, I'm just going to give it the average score, 6.5, because I think it should have been so much more than what it was. And we'll get into it. I'll break it all down in the sections that you guys know me. I'll break down the fighting. I'll break down those kind of things that I look for. So,
meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
So, breaking this episode up was really hard because there weren't a whole lot of storylines. They kind of went together. But I wanted to talk about Cameron because we talked about him a lot last episode. And he comes to school and sees the wreckage of the art room. And you just see on his face just the distress there. And, you know, he is wondering what happened to Mr. Dysinger. And you just see that expression on his face, and just to hear him say, why do bad things keep happening to good people here in town? It was just, disheartening because of, he's had so much happen to him, and just seeing that look on his face, when Court and Pat are there to try to clean up, and that's their alibi there, but just to see his expression, it was just hard.
Yeah, he looked really troubled. I mean, that art is his thing, and Mr. Dysinger, I think, was his friend. We were kind of making fun of that last week, but I think they were truly friends, because he even says it here. He was a friend and my teacher. So, I think he's really struggling a little bit here. But again, like, Courtney kind of leaves him again, like, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what I noticed here is Courtney's really, really bad at hiding things, and I may have brought that up even in the first season. She's really, really not good at hiding that something is up, and she's lying or covering things up. And I just don't know how Cameron doesn't notice, because she's so sheepish and obviously uncomfortable, and he just didn't pick up on it. And I'm just thinking, man, Courtney, you just cannot contain yourself.
And we'll get to this a little later, but I think this is where having somebody older to mentor folks would be, other than Pat, would come in handy. But we'll get there.
Yeah, you do have that later in those.
Yeah. So it's interesting. They're looking through the art, and one of the pieces is of Diablo Island, and the other that they bring up is of Cindy and Eclipso. And so I'm wondering, we know about Cindy, but this Diablo Island, they've laid the hint of what it's about, and the black diamonds there, and Eclipso, and then we get reminding of it here. So I'm wondering, since the black diamond is crushed later on in this episode, do we think that we will go there this season to get a new one to capture Eclipso in? And who's going to do that? Will that be the Shade? Will that be somebody else? I just think they're continually reminding us of Diablo Island for a reason, and I'm wondering why.
I like that you bring it up, because, like you said in your opening monologue, we're surprised that this encounter came up, and I'm surprised that Eclipso was released halfway into the season, because I was really hoping, like we said last week, that we were going to take a trip to Diablo Island. No matter how we got there, I really wanted that Indiana Jones adventure. Let's go looking for clues and artifacts and find out the history of all of this, and have our kids really learn something. I think it'd be great experience for them to go on an adventure like that. And it would have just, I think, given a lot more depth to Eclipso himself to help us understand his history and where he came from, instead of just all we've heard is a voice in a rock and just what the characters have said, what they found out about him. So I think that would have added a lot more depth, and maybe, because Eclipso, they were building him up and they just didn't give him the build-up like Shade was getting, and that's just one small piece of the pie why I was really disappointed with his arrival in this episode. So I think, yeah, if we could go to Diablo Island, that would be fantastic. And if they do bring that around, then good. I just hope it's in the budget to be able to film at a different location and do all that. Yeah. Now the painting of Cindy holding the diamond and stuff in front of her, that was a cool, creepy image. Like, I like that part. I was like, holy, can you imagine having that on your wall? That'd be one of those paintings that watches you everywhere you go.
Yeah. Indeed. That was a creepy and cool artwork done there. And Cameron gives them the insight that Cindy is back in town and, wanted to talk about his dad. So that was giving them the insight of tying Eclipso and Cindy together, which they didn't have before. So I like that.
Yeah, once again, with Cameron obviously needing the support of someone and a friend, because he's kind of alone. I don't get that he's getting the emotional support from his grandparents. So he's in this place. He came to see them. He's opening up to them. And once again, Courtney runs off on him. I know it's Pat's fault this time. He kind of dragged her off, but she still runs off on him. And I'm telling you, it's setting up to go down as exactly as we predicted it's going to happen. She's going to keep doing that, and he's not going to be able to take it, because there might be one of our feedbackers said last week that he's got some issues, I think. Abandonment issues, maybe a bit of jealousy in there too. This is what's leading him down the path to the dark side, and Cindy Palpatine is going to get him.
Well, talking about Cindy, Mike is still looking for a project, and he's over at Zeke's junkyard looking for something to build, and Zeke says he is working on a 12-foot chainsaw for Stripe. and this kind of leads into Mike looking for something and things like that. But I just thought that was hilarious. A 12-foot chainsaw.
That gives you a holy crap reaction. A chainsaw that big? Like, he's going to be this massive wrecking machine with a massive chainsaw and that huge flamethrower. But I have to think, honestly, is Stripe really going to cut down and burn alive young villains?
No.
Probably not. So what is all this build up for? Unless they have a counter to him, like another evil robot. I don't know, because I just can't see him being weaponized like that and even using it. It's like it's the age-old thing with Wolverine in all of the cartoons. He never uses his claws on anybody. His claws only cut down walls and doors and cut weapons in half, but he never actually attacks somebody with his claws, because truly Wolverine would be that bloody and violent, but they can't show us that. And they never did in the movies either. So in his very last one, Logan, it did finally start to lean into it, because we got our rated R rating. So I'm likening this giant robot with all these weapons to that we're never actually going to see him use them.
Right. So Mike finds his drill bit part, but Cindy is there, and he thinks, like we have thought, that she wants to recruit him for the ISA. But nope, he's going to be bait.
Oh, thank the writing gods. Mike will not become a team member on either side. He's the bait. He's the bait to set the trap. That was the biggest feeling of relief I have felt in this show's writing direction all season. Yes. Now, as for that giant drill bit idea, that's actually kind of cool. Like, okay, he's going to have a flamethrower, he's going to have a chainsaw, he's going to have this big drill thing that comes out of his arm. I don't know. Cool idea. And the reason I say it's cool, because I don't know how many of our listeners are as old as I am, but it reminds me of those old 80s cartoons about giant robots that have pilots in their heads, like much, much bigger than Stripe, where the pilot actually fits entirely in the head of the robot. It was out during the times of Robotech, when Robotech was coming on the scene. It was really popular.
Right.
They had these cartoons that were Japanese animation that came over and got Americanized, and they were called Grandizer Guy King and Starvengers, and the entire series was called Force 5, and every week you saw a different episode for one of these three, and it was cool. It was really, really cool. These giant robots flying around with different weapons. I'll see if I can find some links on YouTube or something to post them for you guys on Facebook. But it was so much fun back then, because that drill bit made me think of one of Grandizer's main weapons, where his fist would fly off, like the robot's fist would fly off, and it had this kind of wristband of spikes, and the spikes would swing around to be pointing forward and start to spin, and it would basically turn into a flying drill bit and punch through any enemy robot. And every time Grandizer shot that thing off, he goes, "Screw pressure punch!" And this thing would shoot off. And I was like, yes, screw pressure punch. I love it. And that's exactly what I thought of when Mike's got this 6-foot drill bit in his hand. I was like, screw pressure punch, here it comes. Anyway, that's my childhood memories kicking in there. So I did have some fun with this episode, but it was very night and day all through.
So Cindy sets her plan in motion. She uses Mike's phone, and I think it's interesting that she is she's really ready for this confrontation. So she's using the phone to kind of get Court to come battle her. But it's Eclipso that's trying to hold her back. And so that the battleground is a school cafeteria. I'm like, okay, the school. I just don't know why they're choosing the school cafeteria, but okay, let's go for it.
Well, the school is the battle zone, and I don't think the taxpayers are going to like that destruction. But
no,
it's typical bully stuff. Meet in the parking lot at 3. You're dead, right? Like we all heard that when we were in school, that kind of thing. But I think it's because it's summertime, so the school's all but abandoned. It's an easy place to get into. That's where Cindy's underground lair is anyway.
True.
So it's an easy place to get to, and nobody's really going to take notice at that time of the night either. There's a janitor and a summer school teacher there during the day. So I guess. But what happens the next day when they come in? Like whoever works there and sees that amount of destruction, they'll be like, "What is going on here?" First the artist room, and now the cafeteria.
Yep. So, while that's going on, you've got Artemis and Fiddler 3.0 taking Pat out at the pit stop. And, at first he's taking, kid gloves. He's not wanting to attack, but, he cannot help but try to fight back. But he's fortunate that his life is spared, but not by much.
Yeah, I think is what. Even if Pat did fight back, what could he really do? He's not much more than a regular guy with basic boxing skills. Even in the flashbacks, I don't think he ever actually got into the fight. So he'd be like you and me going in there and swinging our arms as best we could to land a punch. And these kids, well, especially Artemis, she's actually trained. So she's super strong like her dad. And we never did get that explanation of where their strength comes from. I guess there's meta in their family. They're metas.
I see. That's a definite change from the comics, because both of Artemis's parents had peak athletic training and peak physical abilities, but there was no mention of anything meta.
Right.
But obviously, looking at her skills and ability, she's done athletic stuff, but nothing to this level before. So it's got to be some type of meta ability here in this universe.
Yeah, exactly. In this TV version of it, and same with her dad. So I'd love them to explain that. I'd love to see some history on that and see what's going on there. But like I said in my opening monologue, that fight was so well done. Every move looked believable in how things could happen according to physics and stuff. It looked good. It was choreographed perfectly, and it looked, poor Pat, he got his butt handed to him.
Yeah.
And I felt bad, but that was definitely, if I could make that my favorite scene, I would, but it'd just be a bunch of groans and punches and sound effects.
Indeed.
But anyway, as for Stripe, Stripe isn't getting anything this season. He hasn't been used once. He's just been standing there in the garage, and now his head gets knocked off. And I have to ask this question, because this is one of the things that bugged me. Why would the kids go after him anyway? He has not been used all season. There's no threat there. And there's no story for us to believe that they even needed to go and do that, because Stripe hasn't been used. Why would they even be worried or scared of him? And why would they even know about him when he has once not come out to show that he's a threat?
Yeah, and we talk about people going against their counterparts, one against the other. Stripe doesn't really have a counterpart, because last season, he had Grundy, because Our Man was still learning how to use his skills and things like that, but there's not really a counterpart to him this season. No. And I guess it's like, okay, let's explain why we're not going to use the CGI to animate Stripe running around so that we can use the budget elsewhere. I don't know, but
no, exactly. So, and it's just weird. I mean, he hasn't been used, so now they take him out, and now he can't be used anyway. Well, why? You weren't using him anyway. Why do you have to show us him getting destroyed when he's just standing there anyway? It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the villains that we have this season, Eclipso and even the Shade are going to be able to take him out. So it's not. I don't understand. So.
Yep, exactly.
So I kind of want to get into a little bit of Beth and Yolanda in this episode, because they're both, we're dealing with struggles with them, and we're continuing their storyline, which is good. Yolanda is working at the diner. She's having a rough day, and then Isaac comes in. And so we've got this dual thing here where we've got Isaac confronting Yolanda and Artemis confronting Beth. And both really drawing them out. And it's interesting, but with Isaac, I've got questions there. I've got lots of questions there with Isaac. Why is he doing what he's doing? So I don't know.
I'll come to Isaac in just a second. I just want to go back to that scene with poor Yolanda in the restaurant, because
oh gosh,
I hate jerk customers like that, blaming the waitress for the meals because it's burnt or whatever. I've worked in far too many restaurants in my time as a teenager in my early 20s to allow that to be okay. All of you out there, all of our listeners, never blame the servers for anything. They're just the delivery staff, okay? Be good to your servers. They're working their butts off for minimum wage, and they're just be good to them, please. Anyway, because this stuff drives me crazy. And that Isaac stuff, he's got some serious issues, and I don't know why. Is he only angry because he's alone and doesn't have both his parents? I guess that's enough, but I just feel like there's more involved with what's making him be such an angry kid. But then I was thinking, why is he blaming the JSA? The JSA didn't actually kill his parents, right? Like, when we go back to season 1, it's not our team that actually killed his parents.
Exactly. It's Artemis's parents that killed him, but he has been told differently.
Okay.
And, you can argue his dad might have been taken out by JSA, but his mom definitely was taken out by Artemis's parents. And I think, once again, he is just being manipulated by Cindy. And even in the thread, the Facebook thread, we were talking that even if somebody from the JSA told him that, hey, it was Artemis's parents, he wouldn't believe him. And, I'm just like, he's got some major issues. And it's just hard because we do hear the rest of the JSA, especially Yolanda, talking about him at the end, that, he's just gone through a lot, and he wasn't necessarily evil, but he has gone through so much, and he's just being manipulated, so...
Yeah. Well, his biggest issue now is he's dead, so I guess we'll come around to that later in the episode. But no, it was just a tough one to figure out and understand. But I guess some kids are just troubled.
Yeah. So, Beth, I like the fact that she is continuing to work on her parents, trying to get them back together and taking, positive movements of trying to do things. So she's at her dad's work, which is at the foundation, and I love that she's getting creeped out by Jordan's picture over there on the wall. She's trying to avoid it, but she would make Leslie Knope proud. She had her binder of romantic ideas for her parents. And it's not going anywhere because they're like, nope, we're not going to talk without each other present. But I love her initiative there.
How about Ava? Ava from our Legends team would be proud of that binder. Come on. Yeah, she's trying, but it's like Cammy was saying last week with us, the story's getting a little bit dull. It was better this time because there's actual conversation. Her dad's actually sitting down and saying, look, it's not going to work and whatever. Like, at least there's some progress there. It's just it's being stretched out too much.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So she comes out, she's dejected, and we see Artemis really channeling her father, and I love this, using the baseballs just like he did. And she's very bitter, and she thinks that Beth's family is perfect, and we know it's not, but once again, she can't be told that that's not the case. She's not going to believe it. And I like this. She's really stepping into her dad's shoes here, but we can see the effect that Eclipso has had on her, and it's just hard to see because, once again, we saw that connection last, the other episode. But
yeah, it's a little bit annoying here because if Beth could just get something out, just enough to get Artemis to go, what? She would have heard that her family isn't perfect either, and it probably would have fizzled out this whole situation, and Artemis wouldn't even take part. But, it's just a little annoying sometimes when all you have to do is say something, no matter what the other person is saying, just yell it out, whatever. But then again, that's bullies for you. The big tough jock trying to be tough and, beat on the wimpy nerd. Like there's any competition, and I've always hated that. Like, you're real tough. You're real tough, Artemis. Picking on someone like Beth who obviously cannot fight back. Real tough, right. And that just I hate that about bullies. That's what the whole problem with bullies is. They think they can pick on these easy pickings, basically, and it makes them tough and strong. Well, no. How about you pick on someone that might be able to stand up to you, and let's see how tough you are. But no, they won't do that because they don't get the power trip from it, right?
Yeah, indeed. So we've talked about the battle, and Pat was really knocked down. I mean, we saw his lip was stitched up, and they're in the hospital. Barb says he's got a severe concussion, and it was rough to see him in there and to see the damage that he endured there.
Well, it's like we had already mentioned. I mean, Stripe, when he hit Stripe's leg that hard and he hit with his head, I thought he's going to be actually knocked out for a while, like go into a coma possibly, or at least just be unconscious for a while. It was crazy.
Yeah. So the next part is part of my favorite scene, and so we'll get to it later. But I do like after the call with Cindy that Barbara gives Court a pep talk, and so we'll talk about that later. I know you've got thoughts on Amy's acting here, so let's hear it.
Okay, I'm just a little bit mixed on this sequence because I agree with that last part when she says kick her ass. That's great, and I know that's coming up. But the part leading up to that, I thought her acting was off a little bit. I found it weird because this is supposed to be a serious moment. Pat's laying there unconscious. Everybody should be upset. And Amy's smiling in these moments when she should be expressing sadness or worry. And I don't know what it is with the actress, what's going on there. But if you watch her, she's actually smirking. And she can't seem to hide it back. I have no idea. And I just found that her acting wasn't that great. And maybe that's why they're not using her that much, because she's not really stretching herself. She's not really doing much more than what we've seen. I don't know. But then when it comes to your scene, it was okay. And I liked her 2 weeks ago in the kitchen scene with, what's her name? With Artemis's mom. I liked her then too. So she's really wavering right now. And I just this time her performance just wasn't up to snuff for me.
Yeah, I don't know if it could be that, some people try to, when they're overwhelmed, they try to mask it, and she's trying to put on a brave face. I don't know if that's the case or what it was, but yeah. We'll see. It's just uneven. So
yeah.
So yeah. So we've talked about this. They get the ultimatum, and okay. It's time to go to battle, and but Barb is understandably upset and doesn't want to do it, but she knows that the JSA is going to need help. So I like her debating here, and then she finally calls the shade, and this was pretty cool.
I liked the shadow effect on the wall of him arriving as it just grows behind her. I mean, we've seen that trick done so many times before in other shows and movies, but it's always creepy. I mean, she's in a well-lit hospital room, and you just see the shadow grow behind her. We've never really seen him take form like that. So imagine if she had to turn around, what she would have saw. It's just a neat effect. It's creepy, and it just builds on the power of shade and how he can be anywhere at any time, and you would just never know, because she barely got his number dialed in and he was there. So
yeah. And I once again, I like his character. He's like, and this concerns me, why? And and then it's only when she mentions that Cindy has Eclipso that he's willing to help. Yeah. So again, I like his character. I like that he's being drawn in to a fight that he wouldn't have normally been a part of.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So on to the battle. So the JSA, they show up at the cafeteria, and the whole ISA is ready for them. And yeah, okay.
Yeah, the good guys show up. They walk around the corner into the cafeteria. The bad guys walk out from behind the pillar, and Artemis jumps up on the table, and I'm just... this is where I'm choking on all the corn and the cheese. Like that, all three of them strike a pose as they arrive, and it's just the most ridiculous looking thing. Like they all just strike a fighting pose. And,
I know.
And none of them, it didn't even look good. It looked ridiculous. Like it wasn't even a cool fighting pose. It was just like, what is that? Come on. Anyway, yeah.
I love Rick's little dig at him, though. That was fun because he's like, you saw it, call us. Anyway, that was funny.
That's true. But I will say, I do like Cindy's outfit. I'm trying to remember where did she... That was the one that was hanging on the wall in the dungeon of Dragon King's lair, right?
Her dad had made it for her.
It looks cool. I will give her that credit. Her outfit actually looks really cool. It looks like a good villainous outfit, and it's probably the best costume out of all of the members on this show, because like Perry White is making fun of Our Man and poor Beth there. I mean, they do look ridiculous. Cindy actually looked cool, and she kind of reminded me a bit of the Green Goblin from the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That green metallic look to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they get into battle, and I like the fact that we do see some collaboration with each other, of helping each other out. It's not enough, but we do see some collaboration between them to kind of help them, at least throw the other person off a little bit. And, it needs to be more. It needs to be more. They need to really play off each other more. But I did enjoy getting to see the battle here. So, except for Beth. I mean, Dr. Midnight is not, she throws up some screens. She uses her X-ray vision or heat vision to see Mike and free him. But I'm just like, she needs something more, or she needs to not be there. It's just rough because she's just getting beat up. So, ugh.
All right, you want me to get into this fight sequence?
Go for it.
Okay. This fight sequence is really mixed up. It's got some really great stuff and some really horrible stuff, and it's all happening in the same scene. So let's start with the good. The best matchup, because you're talking about matchups and stuff, the best match of the night was Hourman versus Artemis. Evenly matched in skill, strength, and fighting styles, and that equals a good fight, and it's fun to watch. I wish the whole thing was just those two, because what they choreographed for the two of them was realistic looking with what their powers allow them to do. They're both enhanced in strength, and it made them be very toe-to-toe. Who can counter each other better? Like, that's what it came down to. It wasn't who can hit harder, it was who can counter better. And it was just the best part of the whole fight because they were evenly matched, and their fighting styles, everything about these two characters, like you said earlier, they countered each other well, and that just really stood out to me. Because when you look at the worst match of the night, that was the Fiddler and Wildcat, which was just completely ridiculous looking. All he had is a fiddle. He's just standing there in a pair of like trousers and a button-up shirt with a fiddle, and she can't even get that off his hands. I mean, she is enhanced in speed and agility. She is fast enough to be able to avoid his sound wave attacks that he's doing and get to him and take him out. But she doesn't. Like, she's running around and she's doing all these weird acrobatic moves that accomplish nothing. For example, she runs up to that one column and she grabs it and she does like a sideways somersault on the column and then lands back on the ground. Well, what was that for? Like, that was it was completely useless. Just a useless move for no reason. Act like a cat, jump, duck and weave, get to the kid, slice his legs out from under him and take him out. Just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, so he's hitting his violin real hard and is shooting out sonic blast. Okay, that could be cool, but they're not a good counter.
No.
Now, the middle of the road, the one that was mixed with good stuff and mixed with bad stuff, was Stargirl versus Cindy. It was decent at times, but just plain silly at others. And when it was decent, there was some good counters, some good actual hand-to-hand combat where it looked like a kung fu fight, which was cool. But the silly stuff, the moves that Courtney does sometimes just makes no sense to me. She's spinning all around, all over with the staff, doing these acrobatics. Like, she'll plant the staff on the ground and do this weird somersault, spin around the staff like she's swinging around a pole in the schoolyard or something. And then she does all these maneuvers and then just comes in for a simple kick. Well, why bother with all that stuff leading up to the simple kick? Just go and kick the girl. It's just a waste of time and energy. Or when she's flying around on the staff, she's sitting on it, and it looked like they stuck a GoPro on the back half of the staff, and they're just, dragging her around the cafeteria, and it just looked like she was going so slow. I don't know. To me, it was filmed poorly and looked silly. It was an awful angle. I didn't enjoy that at all, because if they wanted to get the effect that she was ripping around the room on the staff and taking people out, you need to make it faster. It just looked silly. And what bothers me about the fight with her and Cindy is fully trained in martial arts. Courtney is not. Courtney is a cheerleader,
gymnast.
A gymnast.
Yeah, she's a
She
gymnast.
doesn't know how to fight. So why does she go in there to stand toe-to-toe with Cindy when she's going to get her butt handed to her? She's got a cosmic staff, one of the most powerful items in the DC universe. Stand back and blast her with it. Why don't you do that? But no, I'm just going to keep flipping all around, doing silly moves, wasting my time, and then get in close where she can hit me a whole bunch of times. I just don't get it. And this is I know it's not the girls, it's not the characters, it's the people writing this and choreographing this to think it's going to be cool, and it's just not working. And you mentioned Beth. I don't even want to get into it there. She was. Why is she showing up? Why? She's going to get hurt. Yes, she used her goggles to see Mike through the walls, but she could do that from anywhere in the school. She doesn't have to be right there in the fight. She just shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yep. So we get that battle, and it's, okay, they're evenly matched, and okay, so something needs to happen. So Cindy says, okay, I'm going to bring out the big guns. She brings out Eclipso, and we have this here. We have the Shade coming in, using his powers and shielding them. Mm-hmm. And I love that effect because I'm like, is Eclipso doing that? And then we realize, no, it's the Shade that's coming in and clouding everything up.
Yeah.
And so I like that. But then we get exactly what Eclipso wants. The staff cracking the black diamond. Stargirl falling into his plan exactly. I mean, I'm like, oh, come on.
That is exactly what Eclipso wanted, and they played right into his manipulation, his tricks. I mean, he didn't even have to do that much. He just knew they're stupid enough to fall for it.
Yeah.
The staff's power was what it needed to break the prison that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just dumb. But... And like you said for Shade, when he showed up and he's, we see that cloud forming around us. I was confused for a moment. Who's that? And then it turns out to be Shade. Very cool. And the fact that he could show that he could block Eclipso for at least a little bit there, that was cool. I was like, okay, cool. Shade's here. We're going to be okay now.
Yeah.
But we'll come around to this again in a couple of moments because it started cool and then it became very not cool. And I'll get to that when we get to that point.
Yeah, so Eclipso is in physical form here, and I think we've all got issues with this physical form. I mean, he sounds like he's actually forming and developing bones and stuff because you're hearing cracking and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, and then Shiv... she brings out her shivs and she tries to stab him, and he easily tears one of those out and kills Isaac with it. And I'm like, okay, I don't like the look, but at least it shows his power. Okay. Those weapons aren't going to do anything, and he can easily just drain people. I don't like his form, but he's definitely powerful.
Okay, so that's interesting because I didn't really see anybody express what they thought of his look. So you're agreeing with me that he didn't look good?
No, I mean it's weird. It's like, watching it the second time, watching it with closed captioning, and when you're hearing like bones crack, you're seeing bones crack on the screen
yeah.
for the sound effects. It's just weird. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. It's just weird.
That's why I said he looked like a dark elf from a kid's adventure movie. Like it just was not good enough for me. But I'm going to get into all this here. So killing Isaac, I didn't see that coming, and that was a bit of a shock.
Neither. But
okay, the kid's one and done. He's out of here. But the thing with Cindy's shivs, because she pulls them out, and like you said, Eclipso grabs one and snaps it off of her to throw at Isaac. But we never really got the explanation of Cindy's shivs, did we? Are they part of her, like Wolverine's claws are? They're
a part of her. Now, we kind of think that her dad like may have enhanced her like physically with that ability to heal and that kind of stuff, but I'm thinking it's like Wolverine's claws where they're housed in her arms and she can retract them, pull them back in. So I mean they're probably not like bone like his, but still ripping them out would probably get those nerves and that kind of stuff too. So
it seemed to hurt her when he broke it off. She kind of shrieked in pain. Again, here's DC ripping off Marvel. Let's use Wolverine. She can heal, and she's got spikes in her arms to go. Okay, but on the note of her being there, I clear my fuzzy mind here. I'm going to go through this. We saw Eclipso taking over her body. You see her face turning all dark and getting all cracked like a dry desert, all that black crackling, black lava looking whatever. We see it because we've seen him do that before, but here he's actually taken over her. Almost her entire face is taken over. She gets the red eyes and everything. And like you said, you can hear the bones cracking, you can hear all that kind of stuff. But once he's fully there, she's suddenly on the other side of the room with the JSA kids, and I was really confused. So as I was typing this, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and rewatch that scene because that didn't make sense. We just saw him taking over her body, and then all of a sudden she's on the other side of the room and he's standing there. What? So I rewatched that scene just before we got to record here to clarify this up so I can explain to everyone. And this is, again, a big nitpick of this episode. We see the staff break the diamond. And in that moment, it's a super close-up of the staff and the point of the staff touching the diamond. You see Cindy's face on the left. You see Courtney's face on the right. When the diamond breaks, Cindy gets blown back to the left side of the screen. Courtney gets blown back to the right side of the screen in completely opposite directions. Cindy is blown backwards by herself where she was standing, and the rest of the team is to the right where Courtney is. The camera then starts to pan around and it gives us our team's perspective, Courtney's perspective, and they're looking at where Cindy just got blown back to, and it's Eclipso standing there coming to life. And like you said, that's where all those sound effects of his bones breaking into place or whatever. And Cindy's nowhere to be seen. So I'm thinking, okay, he became Cindy. He took over her body.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Okay. But then the camera swings back around to look at our team's reactions to seeing him standing there, and suddenly there's Cindy laying on the ground amongst them, also staring back at Eclipso. And this just makes absolutely no sense.
No.
Because she got blown backwards in the exact opposite direction of Courtney. So why is she now suddenly laying on the ground amongst the team as if she landed there? It makes no sense. And to me, that's really bad continuity, really bad editing, and it's stuff like that makes me bonkers, because if I can see it as a viewer, I don't understand why the on-set crew that are filming this scene doesn't take notice that, wait a second, she should be over there, not here. We need to fix it. I just don't understand that, and this drives me crazy.
Yeah, or throw something in there where you see like his powers coming out and it blows her back that way. But yeah, I agree. That's one of the reasons I knocked down some, because I was like, this. I thought he had taken over her, and then she's over there. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah. And that's why I watched it frame by frame, and as I'm getting our clips ready, I looked at it, I was like, no, she got blown back in his direction. There was nothing else to get her to the other side, so it was really, really bad. Now you think I'm nitpicking on that? Well, here's my biggest nitpick of the night, which deserves that. So, like I don't have enough to nitpick about this episode, but seriously, all of this stuff that's happening, the entire, right after the diamond blows up and we see Eclipso coming to life and we see him fighting with Cindy, and then he throws her into the little pool of stuff that we're going to talk about, and he kills Isaac. All this stuff's happening. Our team, everybody is just standing there. It's like 5 to 7 minutes long. They're all just standing there watching. At any point, Courtney could have attacked Eclipso with a cosmic blast as he's forming when he's probably vulnerable. But no, let's just stand there and watch it all play out and let him fully come to being and gain his strength. And and same with everybody else. Everybody else is also, the team is just standing there doing nothing. Even when Cindy's going into that little pit of goo, nobody even helped Courtney when she clearly is struggling to hang on to Sydney. They're still just standing there watching. That stuff drives me even more crazy.
Yeah. So, listen, I understand where you're coming from on this section of the app. And honestly, it's a trope. You have them stunned into inactivity, and then they run in carelessly and get overwhelmed. I mean, we see everybody get taken out. It's just poor writing. We had this cool battle with teamwork earlier, but then they don't know how to write around things to save action for the rest of the season. They're like, okay, we've got to somehow get them overpowered. So let's do this. I just don't understand it. And the other thing is, on the story side of it, I can't help but wonder if we have had some actual older heroes helping to train them and lead them, would things have gone better? Because as I've said before, in the JSA comics, you have the older heroes training up the younger ones, and then the younger ones take up the mantle. And we need that here. Pat doesn't count because he wasn't trained in battle. And we see this issue with Courtney because, yes, she's got gymnastic training, but she doesn't know how to hide, her emotions. She doesn't know how to do battle. They don't know how to work with each other. We really need some Golden Age heroes. And we've talked about this. We're getting the Jay Garrick Flash. So hopefully he can come in and give them some of the training that they really are desperate for. Because I think if we had actually had that, we wouldn't have this issue with the writers of bad writing. Now, it doesn't excuse it. There's ways to get around it. But I think that would have been a more plausible explanation. But we need some older heroes that they'll look up to and take that advice from. So
you make two really good strong points there. One I'll just touch on, the stunned into inactivity. I love that as a quote unquote description for what happens with this trope into everything. Stunned into inactivity. You should put that on a t-shirt. That's cool. But you're also so right. That is what's lacking. I mean, you can even go to Young Justice, the cartoon TV show, as perfect example. The first season is all about our youngsters working alongside the adult heroes to learn from them. And then the adults give them much smaller missions to go try on their own to see if they can accomplish it. And if they do succeed, then they get tougher and tougher missions, and then they get to come along with the adults and help them on the big stuff. That is what we are lacking here. Our team basically became heroes overnight as kids, and that's all they are, is kids trying to be heroes with nobody showing them the ropes, nobody teaching them anything. And like you said, Pat doesn't count because Pat only has the experience of a sidekick to give them some wisdom, but he can't train them.
Right.
And yes, get Jay Garrick on here. And the thing is, I heard the rumor he is not coming till like the second last or last episode of the season, so it's a little bit late. So yes, let's get some people in here. Let's get some crossovers. We're on Earth 2. Okay, fine. Let's get... I don't know who we might have on Earth 2 that could be there as adult heroes, but it would be fun to see someone come in for like a 4-episode arc and put them through the ringer in training. Let's get a danger room built. Let's do something.
Yeah, I agree. We really need that. I mean, honestly, that's what we need. We need that. So, but anyway, so
Yep.
Cindy, like we talked about, gets swallowed up by the goo. Isaac's dead, and Artemis runs off.
So I love that you call it the goo, because what it was a piece of the black diamond that I guess opened up a gooey portal to where to hell? Like, is Eclipso from hell?
So we bring this up because I believe she's been transported to the shadow dimension that he has his powers from, and he says to Eclipso says to the shadow in the fight that your powers come from my realm. So I'm thinking that Cindy and Dr. Midnight are in the shadow realm. And so when the JSA finally rescues the original Dr. Midnight, that Cindy's going to get out as well. So I think she's alive just there in that realm.
Okay, so that answer, my question was, does Cindy die there? I don't think so. She got sucked down to, I was going to just guess hell. I didn't know where Eclipso was from. So is he from the Shadow Realm as well? And is that what you're saying? That's where he is from? That's where he's based out of?
I think it depends on the version, He was kind of like originally designed to be like the Spectre of being cosmic justice, and things then happened. So I think he draws power there. So not exactly hell, but interesting thing, a dimension kind of like that. So
okay. Well, I do agree with you that I don't think Cindy is dead, because what happens when you watch it back a couple of times, that scene, she gets sucked through the goo and she's long gone, and for the next couple seconds after, you can still hear her screaming as she's falling farther down. So I don't think she's dead, because she's being dragged off to somewhere is what it sounded like.
Yeah, and the Shade goes after Eclipso, and Eclipso stabs the Shade, and the Shade is obviously very hurt. I mean, I think he's really hurt. He teleports out, and that was just, you're like, okay, what's going on here?
That was a bit of a shock to me, because Eclipso stabs the Shade on both sides, like right in the kidney area. Just that would kill anybody. When you get stabbed in the side like that, you're gonna bleed out real fast.
Mm-hmm.
But does the Shade die? No, he teleports himself back to his house. But what happens here? Because he teleports to his house, he's on the ground on his stomach, and as he's trying to push himself up to his knees to get up, he teleports out again. And we don't know where. Does he go into the Shadow Realm? Because apparently you can survive there forever without any food or water or whatever, according to our theory about Dr. Midnight being there.
Yeah.
So maybe the Shadow Realm is where he can go and he can heal. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he didn't really intend to go there. I'm thinking he is just his powers are misfunctioning because of his injuries. And I think he gets transported there, and I think he's going to be stuck there, or he's trying to get out, and he may be in some type of loop, and he just can't get out. And it could be because, like I brought up earlier, Eclipso says that Shade's powers come from his dimension, that Eclipso's not going to let him out. So I'm thinking, the Shade can't stop Eclipso. We need the Green Lantern. We need somebody to counter darkness with light, and not Shade with, the Shade and darkness against Eclipso.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense, but I would think Green Lantern is more of a counter to Shade, because Shade controls the shadows and Green Lantern controls the light. Eclipso seems to be a little bit more than just shadows. There's something else going on there, so I'm not sure how much the young Green Lantern's going to be able to do. We'll have to see.
Well, but in the comics, Eclipso's weakness is bright light. And even in this episode, when he is slurking, slipping away, he's been a little injured, but when he goes through those sections of light, he is hurting. He's fine when he's in the shadow.
Okay, yeah, good explanation.
But so I think that's the counter, because Green Lantern can bring that light.
Okay, gotcha. And you talking about or reiterating that the Shade's powers come from Eclipso's realm kind of makes a little bit of sense, because I had a question here, not so much a question, more of a bit of a nitpick about Shade, because they've been building him up all season about how awesome he is, and our team can't do anything against him. And he shows up here, and he's actually kind of useless against Eclipso. And he was about... Him attacking Eclipso was about as helpful as Thunderbolt flying across the dinner table to attack Shade. And it was virtually the exact same sequence with different characters. And I thought, man, that was a bit of a letdown after all this build-up all season.
Well...
Now, speaking of the Shadow Realm, we've mentioned that quite a few times here. I realized this week that DC's gone kind of way overboard with all of their realms and how many different ones there are. Let's just mention a few. Shadow Realm, the Speed Force, the Mirror Universe, the Phantom Zone, and on and on. And I'm sure you can name a few others right off the top of your head right now. There's so many. I mean, how do all of these realms exist together? I was like, wait a second. DC, every single character has a family. There's the young, the old, the mom, the dad, all have the same powers, and they do realms.
Yep.
That's DC's thing. So, can you name any other ones off the top of your head right now?
Oh, not right offhand. But
okay,
anyway, yeah.
I'd love to hear from. I know Abby would probably be really good. I should say Dreamweaver would probably be really good to pull a bunch more out. I want to make a list of how many realms, like the Shadow Realm and the Speed Force, that DC has used. It'd be kind of fun.
Well, yeah, we're on Supergirl this week. We got basically a rehash of the Paragons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, writers on the CW. Come on.
So funny. I'll have to. I'm gonna have to watch the final season just to see how they ended. I am curious about that.
So,
all right,
Eclipso is pushed back by Court's attack, but the staff is drained, and I thought this was an interesting thing. I'm wondering what's going to happen next with this.
Yeah, see, the staff went black, and I found that interesting. Like, drained, did Eclipso suck all of its energy out of it? Is the staff dead? Is it frozen? Or, because we've seen when he's taking over a person, he turns them to that black, crumbling, dry ground, dry earth, or dry clay kind of thing, like burnt clay cracking. Yeah. And that's kind of what the staff looked like, too. So, what happened to it, and what happens to Courtney now? Because without the staff, she's just an acrobat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you guys watch the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon? She's now the acrobat from that cartoon with the staff, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's going to be able to revive it. What can she do for the staff? You got a little bit of info about the cosmic staff for us?
So, so the staff was built by Ted Knight for Starman when he went from the Star Spangled Kid to become Starman.
Right. I brought that up in our preseason about Stargirl way back. Okay.
Right. So he built it, and it's tech. So it absorbs stellar energy to work. And so I believe, yes, it's just totally drained after the fight, freeing Eclipso, and then, wounding Eclipso there at the end. Now, how much time it takes to recharge or what they're going to do, I'm not sure. Because, to take it back to the Marvel side, you've got characters like Cyclops and his brother Havoc, who absorb energy and light and waves from the universe to power their powers. So how long does it take them to recharge? I don't know. Is it always pulling in energy from the universe, and will something have to recharge it so that we can get back to battle? I don't know, but that's it, it's tech, and so I think it's just a dead battery at this point. But what's going to recharge it? How long is it going to take? I don't know.
I like that you pull on Cyclops and Havoc. Havoc is one of my favorite X-Men. Him and Rogue are my top 2 favorite X-Men, so that's just cool. Yeah. Okay, so if it absorbs stellar energy, that's power from the stars. So does that mean it can only charge at night? Because during the day it's not going to get... Or does the sun count as stellar
the sun
energy?
would count, yeah. So.
Okay, because it is a star. I mean, we just confuse night and day sometimes. So, okay, so it really is like a staff version of Superman.
Somewhat. So,
but again, Eclipso grabbed it. And was he just countering it with darkness? So the staff was using everything it had to try to overcome his darkness? Because he didn't actually absorb it into himself. He just overpowered it with darkness, and the staff ran out of battery, basically.
That's what I think.
Okay.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Interesting.
And it does have a mind of its own, but I just think it's a dead battery at this point. So.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we'll see what they do.
Yeah. So, closing out this episode, and I don't really like this, but we get this two-sided debrief of the battle. I don't like it because we've got the family debriefing at the hospital, and we've got the rest of the JSA debriefing at the pit stop. And I like the family dynamic, and it just sets the rest of the JSA who are having family issues up. I just wish we could get some come together there. But anyway, we've got Mike wanting more training and not to rebuild Stripe, but he wants a Stripe of his own. And I'm like, oh.
I told you, polka dot, here we come. But you know what's funny is I can say this. Mike wasn't as annoying as a lot of these parts of the episode was. And I'm like, did I just say that about Mike? Because what I found okay here is he makes sense. He was used as bait. Mm-hmm. And I loved that writing change. Thank you for doing that. But put yourself in his shoes. He got used as bait, and he felt kind of useless. He couldn't defend himself. So he wants to learn how to fight so that in case something ever happens, at least he's got a swinging chance to protect himself. And that makes sense to me. That is a character moment. So, Pat, send him to karate class. Send him to Cobra Kai. Get him working with Daniel. I don't care. Teach this kid how to defend himself. And that's a good story for this character to take. That'll be good for him. And it won't be annoying. Done. I hope the writers do something about that. And if they build him some type of robotic thing, I don't know, whatever. That's just comic book goofy. But at least there's a direction for his character now that I hope they take him in that I can be at least happy about. So yeah.
And I don't know. The rest of the JSA, they're talking about Isaac's death, and I didn't bring this up earlier, but Yolanda is still struggling here because she does not want to hurt anybody. She's afraid of killing people, and I think, honestly, and it wasn't well written, but I think some of her stuff with the fight with Isaac was just her holding back. But she's talking about Isaac's death here, that he's not evil, he was just, misunderstood, that kind of stuff. We've got, I just really wish that the family would kind of reach out to the rest of the JSA and pull them in, because all of them are having family issues, to say, you're a part of our family now. I know that would feel trite, but it might help with some of this angstiness and this reservation here. So I don't know, but
well, yeah. I just realized I missed this note in the notes because I got nothing here. So off the skin of my nose, I'm just going to say that you're right. I think these kids need some guidance because Rick doesn't have any at all. Beth is kind of on her own. Her parents are going through their own thing right now.
Yeah.
And Yolanda's parents don't want anything to do with her. They're embarrassed of her. So these kids need some adult guidance, and I think Pat and maybe Barbara are the ones that should provide that as kind of like surrogate parents. And, invite these kids over for dinner or sit down and let them feel like they're part of something. Let Pat's garage be a clubhouse. Let them hang out there a lot more. And dang it, let's build an underground lair or bunker. Give them the Arrow Cave, because that garage, it's just got a single door to get into. And obviously everybody knows it's there now, and the bad guys can just come find it. So how about you build them something that, you're good at that, Pat. Maybe give Mike that part of your project. Help him design a place. And give them a place to hide out and just be with each other. Yeah.
So we've talked about Eclipso, and I talked about him really being injured and hurt by the light. And I think that is why we see him here at the end of the episode. He turns back into the little boy that we saw in episode 1 to try to... I guess when he's in that human form, the light is less damaging to him. But, oh, man, was that creepy with him just walking down the street and just... that kid plays creepy well anyway, but that was just, ooh.
I don't know where they found that kid, because he is creepy. The way he walks, the look on his face, his little laugh. He's a creepy kid. He's... Yeah, no one's going to invite him over for birthday parties anymore after seeing this. But talk about a perfect disguise. I mean, who in the town is ever going to guess this kid, this cute little boy, is Eclipso? They won't. They will not. It's a perfect disguise. But I have to ask is, where's this kid going to go? What's his story going to be? He has to have a place to stay. He's got to have someone to look after him, or this isn't going to work.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, awesome discussion, X-Force. I mean, we're on opposite sides of the fence for a lot of it, but we actually were able to meet in the middle and kind of hang out like backyard neighbors, and with coffees in our hand or beers in our hand and just talk. So good stuff. Let's get into our favorite scenes.
Shape out an eagle.
And I think actually mine comes like seconds before yours.
It does.
I have to admit, I didn't know what I was going to pick in this episode, because there wasn't a lot for me with my low rating, and there wasn't a lot of dialogue that really stood out to me as something good to use. But what I liked is the scene in the hospital when when Cindy calls Courtney to set up the meet at the cafeteria, and then it cuts to where Cindy is back in her lair, and Eclipso is talking to her. He pretty much gives his whole plan away, but nobody realizes that he does. He basically tells Cindy exactly what he wants and what he needs by saying, I make sure Courtney's the last one. I need her. That's the last soul to absorb, and I'll be he basically gives it away. So here's that clip, and I only chose it because it just led up to what we saw in the end and how stupid everybody was that didn't notice or didn't realize. So anyway, here's the clip.
Come for me. The cafeteria, 1 hour, or Mike dies.
It's all right, Cynthia. It's your time now.
Yes, it is my time.
Just remember, leave Courtney for last.
I know, but...
It will be so delicious. The final soul for me to swallow. Patience.
Okay.
See, he lays it out there. It's blatantly obvious. But you know what? We're harping on how bad he looked when he finally came to life. I also have to say, I do enjoy Nick Terabay, who's playing the part. I loved him on Spartacus, and I loved him as Captain Boomerang. But when he finally came to life, I didn't like his quote-unquote monster acting. He was twitchy and weird, and I just don't think he played it that well. I like him far better just doing the voice like we just heard. He can do the voice really well, but we're going to have to see what they do with him.
Yeah. So my scene was Barb's pep talk with Courtney. So let's take a listen.
Just for reference, I called it kick her ass.
I don't know if I can do this without Pat. Especially if Cindy has the black diamond.
Courtney, listen to me. You absolutely can do this. Go get your friends. And go get your brother. Be Stargirl. For them. And honey, kick that girl's ass.
See, if she says it, I can say it.
Yeah, I love this because Barb knows Eclipso's danger much more than Courtney does. And even with that, she encourages Courtney to go and get the JSA and fight. Yeah, she calls the Shade for help, but I love that she has that confidence and knows that, her daughter is capable. And so I really like that.
Yeah, and that was the better moment for Barbara. The moment up to that was the one I didn't like, and then when she actually did something for Courtney because she hasn't been a mom. Pat's been doing all the parenting. So this was a good mom moment, finally, between these two.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
I got a quick one for you there because we got lots of email, and I'm going to start off with Comic Geek Kev, and he says, wow, quite an episode. Pat gets his butt kicked. Beth finally shows she can be more than a burden in the field, and Cindy and Isaac meet on untimely ends. Maybe? One of the things I loved about Arrow was the amazing fight choreography. Maybe it was in part due to it being mostly non-powered characters, but this fight scene, I feel like it could have been better. The wire work was very obvious, and when Our Man punches someone while powered up, that should be the end of that fight. But this happens a lot in comic book movies. How did Doc Ock take multiple punches from Spider-Man and still have his head is a good example that was recently on social media. People with powers very often are treated with incredible inconsistency, with their power levels adjusting the writing instead of the other way. I'm glad you're saying. For a second, I thought you were going to say this fight was amazing because you led in with your Arrow had amazing fight choreography, and I'm so with you. Arrow. It's because of Arrow that I look for really good choreography and realism in the fights. It's superheroes. It's superpowers. It doesn't mean it has to be phony. Look at Superman and Lois. They made his fighting still look realistic.
Yeah.
Don't make it look goofy. Anyway, so Kev goes on. But having said that, it was overall pretty cool to see the teams go at it. It was nice to see Beth be something besides a burden. The projection from the goggles worked as a distraction, and she was able to use them to find Mike and save him. Finally, let's see what happens going forward. Maybe. Last week, I mentioned I would hope they'd go full Eclipso, and they sure did. I loved the look. He's pretty scary looking, and I think they did a great job with him. I'm sure we'll be seeing more. See? That's where I'm sailing off on my own to Diablo Island. I just completely disagree. Well, maybe X-Force is with me. I don't know. I wasn't expecting Shade to help out the team yet. I thought that might be in the finale, when I still expect to see Grundy, but it worked here just fine. Sounds like we're getting a mini stripe. I'll give it a chance. Maybe it won't be as incredibly disappointing as it sounds. I don't know. I don't think Cindy is actually dead, although Isaac appears to be. I believe she's going to be stuck with Dr. McNider. Eclipso said his and Shade's powers come from the same place, or something to that effect. New theory. McNider and Cindy escape the Shadow Realm, or whatever it's called, and join the fight in the end with Shade and Grundy, as well as Jade and Thunderbolt. CW, I'll take my producer credit and paycheck, thank you. I also don't think Artemis stays bad. I give this episode 8 out of 10 battle toasters. There was some cool stuff, but I'm having a hard time getting past the wire work and some of the fight stuff. Sorry, not sorry. Till next time, Comic Geek Kev. Excellent thoughts, Kev. I'm with you on half of it and not with you on half of it. And good stuff. So still good arguments for both sides. Next up is Dad L. Go for it, X-Force.
All right. Dad L says, "Hello, Cosmic Crew. This episode had one of the best fight scenes on a CW show since Arrow ended. Fantastic action and editing." So we've got a little disagreement going here.
Oh, boy.
"I thought Eclipso was a little over the top once he finally appeared.
Okay.
The growling and grunting was a poor choice in my humble opinion. The one thing that really stood out to me is how Artemis hasn't gone full evil. She didn't kill or more seriously wound Pat since he is a friend of her parents. Is there a possible redemption story for her?" Yeah, like we kind of see in Young Justice. But anyway, yeah. "Cindy is likely in the shadow zone with Dr. Midnight. I think at some point they will be rescued and join the fight against Eclipso. Perhaps Dr. Midnight has learned how to defeat Eclipso while trapped."
Oh.
Interesting thought. "I give this episode 9 pay raises the school janitor needs. Dad L, the last father of Krypton."
So interesting here. 2 emails and completely opposite opinions. One thinks this was excellent fight scene, the other not so much. One thought Eclipso looked really good, one thought he looked horrible. This is interesting how this is going.
Indeed.
And yeah,
right.
I like your story about Artemis. In Young Justice, she was kind of swinging back and forth and ultimately ended up being good in the end. So
yeah.
So,
indeed. So last up, we've got last of the written ones, we've got Perry White. So he says, "Hey Flash and X-Force 11, Perry White here with feedback for Stargirl Season 2, Episode Summer School, Chapter 6, or as I like to call it, 3 O'Clock
yes!
High."
Oh, I love that movie. If you guys have not seen 3 O'Clock High, it's so much fun.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's a classic 80s nerd versus bully flick. Yeah. I highly recommend it.
And it's all about the fight in the parking lot at 3 o'clock, and that's awesome.
Indeed. Anyway, after a slow burn, action-wise this season, we finally get some full-on fisticuffs. From the tandem beatdown provided by Artemis and Junior Fiddler against Pat, to the ISA versus the JSA battle at Blue Valley High, I really enjoyed the action sequences. And I sort of look at them in 2 ways.
Okay.
First, the Artemis versus Junior Fiddler fight versus Pat was pretty frickin' brutal. The fact that he only walked away from the fight with a concussion is pretty damn remarkable. They really should have had some broken bones and internal bleeding issues. Yeah, I agree. But this is a comic TV show, so we know he'll be right as rain by the next episode.
Yep.
Unfortunately. Yep. Next, the Battle Royale between the ISA and the JSA had elements of brutality, especially between Rick and Artemis, while also having plenty of fantastical and coordinated elements of fighting we normally see on a show like this, especially the fight between Stargirl and Cindy and Yolanda and Fiddler Jr. So kind of breaking it out like you did, a little bit.
But he hasn't, I don't think he's knocked on it yet.
Yep. Also, I really like the point of view moments we got during the fight, showing the action from Stargirl's perspective, sort of like she was gauging each battle's progress and plotting ways to interject herself to help her team.
Okay. I'll give you that as a point of discussion that it's Stargirl stepping up to be a bit of a leader. Yes, good story progression for her, but the way they filmed it, I wholeheartedly disagree. It looked cheesy. Anyway.
And he continues on a point that you're going to disagree with, too. The camera work was pretty exciting. I guess the focus on the fighting and the action elements on this show benefited from the fact that the episode was directed by stunt coordinator Walter Garcia. By the way, Garcia has many of his credits as a fight coordinator and stunt coordinator with projects like Ant-Man, Captain Marvel, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's interesting, in my opinion, because those movies had to balance practical fighting elements with unique power/ability sets of characters like Ant-Man. So the use of him in this episode makes a lot of sense.
It was hit and miss.
Overall, I really like the fighting elements and how they use the camera to help tell the story using unusual angles and point of view elements. I thought it was really cool. However, what I always laugh out loud at is at any time Green Grimace, yes, that is best new superhero name, runs into battle with the team because she has no physical ability to help the team at all.
Nope. At least we agree on that.
Yeah. I hope that she and the team realizes that she has to take on more of a mission coordinator's role, kind of like Felicity used to do with Team Arrow.
Yep.
Yes, let's see that.
Yep.
Certainly, it helps having Beth out in the field, particularly using the goggles to help point out strategic advantages, and in this case, help find Mike. But I just think she's a liability being out in the field.
Huh?
Whew. That was a lot, and that was just about the action elements. I also totally enjoyed the horror elements of the show. While I'm trying to decide how I feel about the actual look of Eclipso, there's no denying that the use of lighting and music helps tell a sinister story. And while it was a bit too much like Mortal Kombat, I liked the effect of Eclipso consuming Fiddler Jr.'s soul.
It was kind of Mortal Kombat, you're right.
I also liked the use of elements to send Cindy to her apparent doom. I say apparent because no body, no death, in my opinion. Nope. And we agree with you there. Finally, I also like the fact that Eclipso has shape-shifting abilities. There's just so many questions about his abilities, his endgame, and just as importantly, how the secret Pat and Barbara are keeping from Courtney figures into all of this. Indeed. I could probably write pages more about this episode, but I will spare you guys that. Just know that I give this episode 9.5 knuckle sandwiches out of 10. Stray observations. While it's obvious that Artemis has inherited meta abilities shared by Crusher/Sportsmaster and Paula/Tigress, we have not really gotten an in-show explanation of those abilities.
Exactly.
Yes, we want those. Yeah, we want that. Obviously, she's pretty strong and swift, but what are her limits? I mean, she went toe-to-toe, in my opinion, and bested Rick in many ways. Yep. I want to see more of her story and more of her. Yep. I also liked that Barbara got to do more in this episode than just to react at what's happening to everybody else. I like that she took the initiative to reach out to the Shade. I liked also that she got to be a mother to Courtney. Yep. This show focuses a lot on the father-daughter relationship between Pat and Courtney, and for good reason. But I think Barbara's relationship with Courtney has suffered as a result. Indeed. We've talked about that in the last couple of episodes. So, yep. I like the moments they got to share at the hospital, and while it still bugs me a bit that adults are okay with sending kids to fight in life and death situations, I did like that Barbara gave Courtney the pep talk she needed.
It is a good point. I mean, we find out Mike is 14 in this episode. Someone actually asked him how old are you, and he says, I'm 14. So that must mean Courtney and the gang are 16-ish? Yeah. Which clears up my confusion about Yolanda having a waitressing job and all that, because now she's old enough for sure.
Yeah. For the first time in a long time, I actually appreciated what Mike brought to the story. and he's right. Because of the life his family leads, he is, indeed, placed in danger, and he needs to be able to take care of himself. I'm not saying he needs to be a hero, but he needs to be capable and smart.
Call up Cobra Kai, indeed. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I hope he gets the chance to do more of that with Pat. Yeah. I'm secretly starting to believe that the issues between Beth's parents are about more than just domestic strife. Interesting. What is it leading up to?
Yeah.
I don't know. This show seems to focus on them as well as the guy helping Pat with stripes. That's Zeke. And, I find it hard to believe that this show is focusing on these characters based on what we see on the surface. Good point. Yep, there's always a purpose to what we're seeing.
Yeah.
I have a sinking suspicion that Beth's parents are part of some sinister plot or plan, and their true motivations will come to light. Interesting, yeah.
That would bring some more weight to that story, make it actually interesting.
Yeah. Is anyone at Blue Valley High gonna wonder why in the past 2 days there's been considerable amounts of damage?
Yeah, exactly.
Most schools have some kind of surveillance system, but I'm sure Blue Valley High conveniently does not. Yeah. I mean, I work at a middle school, and we've got plenty of cameras. I can imagine a high school has a whole lot more. But, I'm going to say, explain nothing.
And they keep making Blue Valley, Nebraska, on Earth 2 seem like it's the 50s or 60s, which we keep talking about that. If you remember the first times we started going to Earth 2 back in whatever season of The Flash that was, they had all the same technology, but they were like a 50s, 60s aesthetic. That's what that Earth is like. Even though they're equal to us in modern technology, their aesthetic is 50s, 60s. And this is what we're seeing in Blue Valley. So, maybe there's just no security cameras.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think I've written enough for this episode. I absolutely loved it. Can't wait to hear what everyone else has to say about this episode. Perry White here, banging out another Pulitzer Prize winning feedback submission. I'm out.
That's it, Perry. Hear this? You and me, 3 o'clock in the parking lot. Let's go. So, I don't know. It's so funny. Talking about all the fight stuff, I feel like I should go be like a consultant on the shows to make sure their fighting is... I mean, I don't know enough that I could actually choreograph it for them. They can do all the choreography, but I'll sit back and watch and tell them if it looks realistic or not. Because I need realism. When you're fighting hand to hand, you need it to look real or it's just phony. And I just can't abide by what happened in this episode with some of the parts. So, yeah, that's it. I just created myself a new job. Let's go. All right, last up is a voicemail by Dreamweaver.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. Remover here with feedback for Stargirl Season 2, Episode 6, Summer School Chapter 6, or if we give this a song title, since Courtney was wearing a Queen shirt after all this episode, Chapter 6, Another One Bites the Dust. This one is probably my highest rated of the season so far. I'm giving it 9.5 Neon ISA backpacks because I thought that was funny, very subtle, but this... I can see why a lot of the previous episodes have been such slow burns now. They were just saving up for an almost 20-minute action sequence and Eclipso in the flesh. This episode was directed by Walter Garcia, who's typically the stunt coordinator for Stargirl, but you can see why he got his own episode here. He's also worked on some pretty big projects aside from this too, like Captain Marvel and the Ant-Man movies, so the creativity is showing through. But I'll get more to that, but I'll speak to the first half of the episode first. It was nice to see Beth actually speaking her mind to her dad and not trying to hold that in. Divorce is a, to say the least, complicated issue, and the children usually don't have much of a say in it. But Beth speaking up here really highlights how much more courage and self-respect she's grown into since we first saw her in Season 1. Zeke can't seem to get rid of those giant stop signs there, and throwing in the toaster from Season 1 with the claw marks from Yolanda figuring out the suit was a nice reference. And it turns out Mike was just bait all along. Cindy didn't want him for the ISA either. And I know a part of me should feel bad for him, especially since he's feeling alone and already unwanted, but I just don't care about Mike's character that much, and I never really have, so it's hard for me to feel anything there for him. Pat and Stripe are both down. It was kind of interesting to see Artemis stop Isaac from killing Pat because he's her dad's friend. I feel like she's going to go on an interesting journey throughout the show. And I know that the actress, Stella Smith, that plays her is one of the youngest in the cast. She was only 17 when filming this season, so that's why we never saw her without her mask and her mini Sportsmaster suit. Because of child and safety laws on set, it was a stunt double the whole time, just with 80-yard lines. Which, this brings me to the action sequence, which was half the episode it felt. That was one of the best choreographed, filmed, and edited fight scenes I have seen on a superhero show. Yeah, sure, some of the kids defy the laws of gravity a bit. I will let that slide. But the sequence was phenomenal. Two subtle and believable moments for each character, like the smart decision of getting Beth out of the hand-to-hand combat and being the one to rescue Mike, plus that thing she did at the beginning with the goggles distracting Artemis with her parents' mugshots. That was a cool defensive move. I feel like defensive moves go underrated a lot, but good defense along with offense in a fight sequence shows creativity and just a better understanding of all the action. And then there was Rick chucking a whole table and getting almost a swirly in the bathroom. Him and Yolanda at the end there even did a bit of a mini fastball special a la Colossus and Wolverine from X-Men. And then there were all the match cuts. Those were awesome. The actioner pose matching up with another character and cutting to then a different pair fighting. That was so cool. I'm taking notes for whenever I actually have to direct an action sequence one day. It's no wonder that they built an actual cafeteria set on a soundstage instead of using the school's cafeteria, which they did for Season 1. I don't think the school would have liked how damaged that cafeteria was getting. And of course, Shade got to make not one, but two dramatic entrances this episode. And Eclipso said something really interesting before wounding him. He said, "Your powers come from my home." Now, is he just referencing the shadows, that his powers come from the dark, and Eclipso is essentially darkness? Or is he referencing that the Shade's powers come from Diablo Island? Because that does get referenced again in this episode. Could be an interesting backstory brewing between the two of them. I kind of hope we get to see some of that history or flashbacks with them. And who saw the staff being the thing that broke Eclipso out of the diamond? Because I did not. They really kind of threw us for a loop after setting that up last episode with the light being able to break through the dark. The light did still hurt Eclipso, but not enough. He's creepy. They did a really good job with his wardrobe and makeup. He's almost animalistic, the way he ripped one of Cindy's shivs out of her wrist, and then when he ran out of the door on all fours. And I remember wondering if Isaac was ever going to learn that Artemis's parents were responsible for his mother's death and what that may do, but I guess that's not a question I have to ask anymore, because Isaac really did bite the dust here. And it's a bit unclear, but to me it felt like Cindy may be trapped in a piece of the diamond. I doubt she's gone or dead, but either way, I did not see that coming either. And boy, is that little kid that plays young Bruce Gordon Eclipso creepy. His cackling down the street was very unnerving. And that shot looked very classic 80s horror movie. Kind of really hope we get a Ghostbusters reference somewhere this season. I think that would be fun. Alright, that's all my thoughts this week. Until next time, your friend Dreamweaver.
Oh, not friend Dreamweaver this week. That's it. You and Perry. Out in the parking lot, 3 o'clock. So fun, guys. So fun. All right, well, that is all for tonight, guys. Thanks for all your awesome feedback, as always. For the rest of you that want to join us for Stargirl as we continue on for the next few weeks with it. So what you got to do?
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to Tomorrow's Legends Podcast at gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
Yes, that brings us to the end. I don't have much else to add to that. I just really enjoyed the discussion. I think sometimes it's fun when we're on opposite sides of the fence, and it just brings good discussion. Yeah. But the only thing to talk about, we did have the Mandalore podcast live at the Expo just past weekend, and it was pretty successful. We had about 30-ish people in our little room, so not too bad. I'll be hopefully putting that together as a bonus episode for you guys to check out. I mean, it's stuff you already all knew. We just kind of, rehashed everything into one 1 hour session. So, but it was still fun. Lots of fans were there. Took some pictures. If you guys were fans of the Bad Batch, Wrecker was actually in the house, which is really, really cool. Someone did a fantastic costume job of Wrecker, and he was just as big. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, and like I said, I got a treat, new intro for our show coming up. The Legends premiere, so look forward to that. Other than that, that's all I got. Everybody have a good weekend, and this is The Flash signing off.
This is X-Force 11, so say we all.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.